Hello, good morning. I want to discuss on generation of computers. We'll be beginning on first generation computer, which was made in the year between 1940 to 1958. These computers were huge, expensive, and often broke down. They were slow compared to today's computers. They had the internal storage capacity which was limited. And then another characteristic of these first generation computers is that cards were used to enter data into the computer. They also used vacuum tubes to control the internal operation. These first generation computers were used for payroll processing system and bullying. An example of the first generation computer is the IBM 650 and ENIAC. This is the way the vacuum tube was in the first generation computers. The advantages of the first generation computer is that the first advantage, vacuum tubes technology made possible for the advent of the electronic digital computers. And then the second advantage of the first generation computer is that these computers were the fastest calculating device at that time. Let's look on the disadvantage of the first generation computer. The first disadvantage is that they were too bulky. Another disadvantage is that they were unreliable. The third disadvantage is that they had limited memory capacity. The next disadvantage is that they generated a lot of it. This made this computer to be often broken down. And then the last disadvantage is that it consumed a lot of power. Want to look on the second generation computer? Yeah, the second generation computer, which was developed between the year 1958 to 1964. They used transistors to control the internal operation, and then a magnetic card was used as a primary storage media. It was used to store their data. They had increased storage capacity compared to the first generation computer. And then the next characteristic of the second generation computer is they had great reduction in size and heat generation. Remember, in the first generation computer is that they were huge in physical size, but the second generation computer is their size is slightly reduced compared to the first generation computer. And then the heat generation the first generation computer, it generated a lot of heat, while this one, second generation computer, they generated less heat compared to the first generation computer. Another characteristic of the second generation computer is that it had increased speed. The speed they are talking in this case is the processing speed. And then they were more reliable. The characteristic of the second generation computer is that they were more reliable compared to the first generation computer. The example of the second generation computer is the IBM 1401 and the Honeywell 200. We have also the CDC 1604. The advantages of the second generation computer. The first advantage is they were smaller in size compared to the first generation computer. The second advantage is they were more reliable. And then the third advantage is they generated less heat. The next advantage is that they were less prone to the hardware failure. We also want to look on the disadvantage of the second generation computer. They require air conditioning to cool them down, and then also they required frequent maintenance. Hence, they were requiring some frequent maintenance. The next disadvantage is commercial production was difficult and costly. Commercial production was difficult and costly. We want to look on the third generation computer, which was developed between the year 1964 to 1970. These computers, they used integrated circuits to control the internal operation, and then they also had increased storage capacity compared to the first and second generation computer. And then the performance of they had better performance. And then it is during this third generation computer where the software industry, which is the operating system, was brought in. An example of the third generation computer, we have the IBM system 360, and then we have the Bara B5500. We want to look on the advantage of the third generation computer. The first advantage is that smaller in size. As you can compare it from the first and second, you will find out that the third generation computer was smaller in size, and then they were more reliable. Another advantage is emitted less heat, and then another advantage is also maintenance cost was low because hardware failure were rare, and then it require less power. Compared to the first and the second generation computer. The disadvantage of the third generation computer: highly sophisticated technology required for the manufacture of the integrated circuit. Highly sophisticated technology was required for the manufacture of the integrated circuit. And then another disadvantage is that they were costly. Want to also look on the fourth generation computer, which was developed between the year 1970 to 1989. And then this computer used the large scale integrated circuit. I said earlier that the third generation computer, they used integrated circuit, but in the fourth generation computer they used the large scale integrated circuit. They had large storage capacity, and they also worked at very high speed. They had a very high processing speed. And then it was introduction of the microprocessor, microcomputer, and supercomputers were realized during this fourth generation computer. An example of the fourth generation computer, we have the IBM that 3033, and then we have the Bara B7700. The advantage of the fourth generation computer: the first advantage, they are smaller in size because of high component density. And then you can also have they were very reliable. Another one is they generated negligible heat. It means they generated very little heat. And then they had much faster. They were much faster in computation. It means they had a very high processing speed. And then they are not prone to hardware failure. And then they are portable because of their small size. Want to look on also on the disadvantage. The first disadvantage is that highly sophisticated technology required for the manufacture of the large scale integrated chips. And then the second one, we want to look on the last one, which is the fifth generation computer, which was between the year 1990 to the present. This generation is characterized by the emerging of telecommunication with the computer technology. Scientists are working on this generation to bring machine with genuine IQ. The IQ in this case is the intelligence quotient, which have the ability to reason logically with the real knowledge of the world. The anticipated computer will have the following characteristic. The characteristic of the fifth: it is expected to do parallel processing, and then it will be based on logical inference operation. It is also expected to make use of the artificial intelligence. We can also say the fifth generation computer, they have very high processing speed than the rest of generation computer, those the first gen, second, third and fourth. And then they are very small in size, they are portable, they consume less heat, and we can also say it require less maintenance. It does not require frequent maintenance. Thank you for being my audience. Kindly subscribe to the channel. The next lesson I will be discussing the classification of the computer. Welcome to the next lesson. Thank you.